Station 2.
Mr. Buffett, Mr. Munger, my name is Nicholas Erdenberger. I hail from the beautiful Garden State of New Jersey. And I guess the, question...
Applause.
So I guess this is a follow-up question to the question before. I really connect with the idea of not investing in industries you can't fully understand. Being a young guy who has limited ability to code and who can't build robots, tech is certainly not an industry I fully understand. And yet these days, the concept of entrepreneurship is nearly synonymous with tech amongst people my age. So my question to you, Mr. Buffett, is if you were 23 years old with entrepreneurial tendencies, what non-tech industry would you start a business in and why?
I'd probably do just what I did when I was 23. I would go into the investment business, and I would look at lots of companies, and I would go and talk to lots of people, and I would try to learn from them what I could about different industries. One thing I did when I was 23, if I got interested in the coal business, I would go out and see the CEOs of 8 or 10 coal companies. And the interesting thing was I never made appointments usually or anything. I just dropped in, but they fellow from Omaha who looked like me couldn't be too harmful, so they'd always see me. And I'd ask them a lot of questions, but one question I'd always ask them, two questions at the end. I would ask them if they had to put all of their money into any coal company except their own and go away for 10 years and couldn't change it, which one would it be and why? And then I would say, after I got an answer to that, I would say, and if as part of that deal they had to sell short an equivalent amount of money in one coal company, which would it be and why? And if I went around and talked to everybody in the coal business about that, I would know more about the coal companies from an economic standpoint than any one of those managers probably would. So I think there's lots of ways to learn about business. You're not going to learn how to start another Facebook or Google that way, but you can learn a lot about the economic characteristics of companies by reading, personal contact. You do have to have a real curiosity about it. I mean, I don't think you can do it because your mother's telling you to do it or something of the sort. I think it really has to turn you on. And I mean, what could turn you on more around asking questions about coal companies? Yeah, that maybe be a little odd too, but that's what I would do. And I might, in the process of doing that, find some industry that particularly interested me. In my case, the insurance industry did. And you might become very well equipped, even perhaps to start your own insurance company, but perhaps to pick the most logical one to go to work for. If you just keep learning things, something will come along that you'll find extremely useful to do. I mean, but you've got to be open to it. Charlie?
Well, you might try a version of the trick that Larry Bird used. When he wanted an agent to negotiate his new contract, he asked every agent why he should be selected, and if he was not going to be selected, whom the agent would recommend. And since everybody recommended the same number two choice, Larry Bird just hired him and negotiated the best contract in history. Yeah. There are a lot of tricks that people use.
We did the same thing as Solomon, actually. There was a Saturday morning when I called, and you were there, Charlie, weren't you?
Yeah,
sure. I called in, I don't know whether it was 8 or 10 of the managers. I just gotten in there on Friday afternoon, and now it's Saturday morning, and we had to open for business Sunday night in Tokyo, and I had to have somebody to run the place. So I called in 8 people, and I said, who beside you would be the ideal person to run this and why? One guy told me that there was nobody compared to him. He was gone from the firm within a few months, but it's not a bad system to use. You can you can really learn a lot just by asking. I mean, it's starting to sound a little bit like a Yogi Berra quote or something, but it is literally true that if you talk to enough people about something they know something about, and people like to talk, and here we are talking ourselves. And you just have to be open to it, and you will find your spot. You may not find it the first day or the week or month, but you'll find what fascinates you. I was very lucky because I found what fascinated me when I was 7 or 8 years of age. But some people find chess or music, fascinates them when they're 4 or 5. If you're lucky, you find it early, and sometimes it takes you longer, but you'll find it.
If it's a very competitive business, and it plainly requires qualities that you lack, it should probably be avoided. When I was at Caltech, I took thermodynamics, and Homer Joe Stewart, who was a genius, taught the course. And it was perfectly apparent to me that no amount of time or effort would turn me into a Homer Joe Stewart. He was utterly, impossibly more talented than I could be. Gave up. I immediately decided I wasn't going to try and be a professor of thermodynamics at Caltech. And I've done that with field after field, and pretty soon there was only 1 or 2 left.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a similar experience in athletics. Okay, Becky.
This question comes from Darren Bornemeyer. He says, Warren, you've commented in the press that you are concerned about the hotel price gouging in the Omaha area during the Berkshire meeting weekend. Hold your applause. You haven't heard the rest. Please elaborate further on that position, as it seems to contradict free market capitalism. Shouldn't the law of supply and demand apply in this case?
Absolutely. And so therefore, since we want to increase the demand, the proper thing to do is increase the supply, right? And that's why we have encouraged, for example, Airbnb to come in, and they supplied some rooms this year. But it's very logical. If you think about most cities, the big events that come to their convention centers and use their hotels, they size themselves in deciding where to go. If you have a relatively small industry, they can pick a moderate-sized city and they can have their convention there, and they don't outstrip the supply of rooms. If you have a very big industry and you're having a convention, you have to go to some place like Vegas or someplace that has a lot of rooms, because otherwise you do throw the supply demand out of whack. So if you have an event which isn't sized by the people that are scheduling it, can't be sized by the people who are scheduling it, then you can totally outstrip rational supply of rooms. I mean, the great case would be something like the Masters tournament. I mean, Augusta can't size its hotel industry to Augusta, to the Masters, and the Masters isn't going to move anyplace. Well, there are certain events like that, but there aren't very many. And Omaha cannot size its hotel supply to the Berkshire meeting. It can size it to the kind of conventions it normally gets and all of that, but the Berkshire meeting is growing beyond what we anticipated. So fortunately, there's developed, and for that reason, people started putting in, what really bothered me were the 3-day minimums. I mean, I think there's something particularly irritating about somebody who's coming in for a 1-day event. They have to have a 3-day minimum. And the prices were getting high. Incidentally, the Omaha Hilton, right across the street, they've been magnificent throughout this, as have many others. But there were a few that were really pushing things, and we didn't want to cut down on the demand. We didn't want to move to Dallas, even though we're opening a store there next year. It would be kind of fun for that. But we're not going to move to Dallas. I mean, Omaha people love this event. It's an economic boon for Omaha. And people get a good impression of Omaha when they come here generally. So there's a lot of good things about having the meeting in Omaha, and we can't expect anybody to build new hotels to take care of 3 days a year. So fortunately, something like Airbnb is sort of a flex supply arrangement that seems to me to make a lot of sense for it. And I think that it will be more developed by next year, and I think that the hotels will do extremely well next year, but I don't think they can push it to the ultimate extreme of a total scarcity product. And we want them to do well, and that's why we've gone where we have. Charlie?
Nothing to add.
Okay. It is a question of being self-realistic, and that applies outside of business as well. I think Charlie and I have been reasonably good at identifying what I would call the perimeter of that circle of competence, but obviously we've gone out of it. I would say that in my own case, I've gone out of it more often in retail than in any other arena. I think it's easy to sort of think you understand retail and then subsequently find out you don't, as we did with the department store in Baltimore. You can say I was outside of my circle of competence when I bought Berkshire Hathaway, although I bought it really to resell as a stock originally. I probably was out of my circle of competence when I decided that I should go in and buy control of the company. That was a dumb decision, which worked out. Being appraising your own talents and shortcomings, I think. I don't know whether that's innate, but some people seem a whole lot better at it than others. And I certainly know of a number of CEOs that I feel have no idea of where their circle of competence begins and ends. But we've got a number of managers who I think are just terrific at it. I mean, they really know when they're playing in the game they're going to win in, and they don't go outside of that game. The ultimate was Mrs. B at the Furniture Mart. She told me that she did not want stock in terms of the Berkshire Hathaway deal. Now, that may sound like it was a bad decision. It was a splendid decision. She did not know anything about stock, but she knew a lot about what to do with cash. She knew real estate, she knew retailing, and she knew exactly what she knew and what she didn't know. And that took her a long, 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 long way in business life. And that ability to know when you're playing the game in which you're going to win and playing outside of that game is a huge asset. I can't tell you the best way to develop a great sense of that about yourself. You might get some of your friends that know you well to offer contributions. Charlie's given me a few contributions occasionally, saying, "What the hell do you know about that?" That's one way of putting it, of course. But Charlie, can you help him out?
Well, I don't think it's as difficult to figure out competence as it may appear to you. If you're 5'2", you don't have much of a future in the National Basketball League. And if you're 95 years of age, you probably shouldn't try and act the romantic lead part in Hollywood. And if you weigh 350 pounds, you probably shouldn't try and dance the lead part in the Bolshoi Ballet. And if you can hardly count cards at all, you probably shouldn't try and win chess tournaments playing blindfolded, and so on and so on.
You're ruling out everything I want to do.
But competency is a relative concept. And what a lot of us need, including the one speaking, is what I needed to get ahead was to compete against idiots. And luckily there's a large supply. And